Now, Comey's revelation about Lynch is just one of his many massive double standards. Now, Comey kept quiet about former Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch trying to influence his investigation into Hillary Clinton, which is the very definition itself of obstruction. But he's trying to destroy President Trump for allegedly saying, I hope you can let Flynn go. By the way, as was pointed out yesterday, saying, I hope, never led to an indictment on obstruction of justice of anybody. So the Loretta Lynch situation is far worse. So why didn't Comey come forward earlier? Was he trying to protect Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration? Then there's this double standard that Senator Marco Rubio pointed out. Take a look at this.
This investigation is full of leaks left and right. I mean, we've learned more from the newspapers sometimes than we do from our open hearings, for sure. Do you ever wonder why, of all the things in this investigation, the only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks?
The only thing that wasn't leaked, the only thing, the exculpatory thing. Anyway, Comey had told the president 3 times that he wasn't under investigation. So why couldn't Comey have let you, the American people, know that truth? Instead, Comey, he sat by, he watched Democrats, he watched the Destroy Trump propaganda media endlessly push and advance their black helicopter tinfoil hat conspiracy theories about Russia collusion with Trump in the campaign, which we've now found out is completely untrue. Comey let this liberal, insane feeding frenzy spiral out of control for months. But if you remember back in June of last year, he felt compelled to publicly clear Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing for her email server, despite the fact that she had top secret, that's right, top secret, special access program, classified information on that email server. And we can't forget that up to 5 foreign government agencies hacked into that server and likely have everything on that server. Now, Comey doesn't care about the Constitution, as I've been telling you. He doesn't care about equal justice under the law, the equal application of the rule of law. And he proved that by not doing anything about Hillary's emails. Obvious felonies were committed in this case. And, of course, he didn't investigate the Clinton Foundation. Uranium One deal. 20% of America's uranium are in the hands of Vladimir Putin, and the Clinton Foundation got millions from people associated with that deal. So here's the bottom line tonight when it comes to J. Edgar Comey. He is a skilled political operative who navigated his way to the top of the deep state by doing whatever's necessary. That's why I gave him the new name, J. Edgar Comey. Here with reaction from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, the founder of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci, and Fox News host, former defense attorney Greg Jarrett. Jay, let's start with you, and more importantly, let's go over these issues in terms of the legality. U.S. 18 U.S. Code 4, 18 U.S. Code. The second issue, what is it? 641.
641. Yep. So, look, I mean, Greg has done a great job of reporting on 18 U.S.C. 4, and it has been exactly correct, and that is if the then director of the FBI thought that, in fact, the President of the United States was obstructing justice, he had an affirmative obligation to go to the Department of Justice to at least have a file open and report this. That's an affirmative requirement. If you don't do it, it's a crime. So, obviously, he did not think there was obstruction of justice. That's number one. Number two, let's look at what took place here. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation has a meeting with the President of the United States. He takes notes from those meetings. He does not release them to anyone purportedly at that time. He puts them in the drawer of his office, I guess. He does this, by the way, according to his testimony, in his FBI vehicle on an FBI computer, and he just saves it. Just puts it in the drawer. I'm going to save it for later. Later comes out because he gets terminated. And by the way, left and right were calling for his termination. We were for a year. In the middle of the election, what he did was outrageous. But then take it a step further. He sends the memo to a friend of his, who, by the way, was a consultant to the Department of Justice, to leak it to the New York Times. And he said he did that because on the Friday, the president said, you better be careful. You better be careful what you say. Talked about the tapes, all of that. Okay, here's the real issue. The contents of that memo, the substance of it anyways, was already reported in the New York Times the day before the president tweeted anything. And then, Sean, he goes under oath and says, I did this to get a special counsel, which, by the way, is impaneled the next day. So you tell me what this is.
Outrageous.
This is, no, it's more than outrageous. it's a crime. And if you go to the idea that then he shared this information, could you imagine if an FBI agent did a 302, which is basically the form that evidently no one's seen the memo, but James Comey, the memo of the conversation, and leaked it to the New York Times, what would happen to them? They'd go to jail.
You're 100% right. Greg and Jay's right. Both of you, by the way, have done great work here. And Greg, do you agree with Jay's analysis? Is it that serious? And do you think something will happen as it relates to Comey and the law here?
Yeah, Comey said these are his personal documents. No, they're not. They're government property. Just read the Federal Records Act and the Record Management Act and the Privacy Act, which is actually published on the FBI website. And you, importantly, Sean, put up on the screen Code 641, which makes it a crime to convert government property and convey it to somebody else. That's punishable by 10 years behind bars. So, I mean, I think Comey is actually looking at serious legal jeopardy here himself. And in addition to that, he signed a non-disclosure agreement that said, I will not disclose records or raw data. Well, he did precisely that. And at the end of the disclosure agreement, it says, if you break this contract, you can be sued for money damages by the government, and surely they should do that. And you can be criminally prosecuted, and that doesn't matter that he's been fired and is no longer the director.
Well, 18 U.S. Code 641, 18 U.S. Code 4, Anthony Scaramucci. Let me go to a different issue as it relates to this, and that is, this to me is now the biggest opportunity for the president to clean out every Obama holdover, all of these deep state leakers. And by the way, I have great faith in the intelligence community. We need that tool to fight back ISIS and Iran and China and Russia. Very key. But for those that have been abusing and using as a political weapon or weaponizing our intelligence gathering, they all have to be weeded out, and they need to be gone sooner than later, and some of them prosecuted. Your thoughts?
Well, he certainly has license now to do that. I think that leaking omission was very damaging. But what I'm worried about, Sean, is that when you listen to the testimony, you could clearly see why the president felt himself vindicated by the testimony. But then minutes after the testimony, the mainstream media drops this cloud and fog around the situation. The front page of the New York Times today was the most disturbing. It was totally disconnected, Sean, from what actually happened in the testimony. And so what I'm worried about...
Did you actually read that, Anthony?
No, I glanced at it in the gym, Sean, okay? I had to look at it this morning at 6:30. No, I didn't. I had a little bit of vomit in my mouth. But the point that I'm making is that these guys surround the narrative, and they try to change it on the president. And I think this is something the president is justifiably upset about.